Hi, and welcome to the Senior Network. I'm your host, Greg Fulton, along with Debbie Lyons, my co-host.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We have today Jim Keith with Keith's Funeral Home. Glad to have you, Jim.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And Jay Mullinax with the law offices of Jay Mullinax. Glad to have you.
Thanks.
It is always fun to have you all. I tell you, the stories that we tell and the synergy between you two is pretty amazing. You were saying that you all have been doing quite a bit of collaborating, and I was like, I don't get it. So that's kind of fun. I'd love to have you share with us a little bit about what the collaboration looks like, because it's pretty impressive.
Well, a lot of times I need legal advice, or a family that I serve needs legal advice. So Jay, number one, he's right down the street from me, and number two, we've had great success from the people that I've sent to him, and they've come back and said, hey, you really did me right by this. But sometimes we just have to talk and say, okay, maybe there's an issue as to who the legal next of kin is. And sometimes people will wait until it's too late, until they call me and they say, you know, I'm not really the next of kin, but this is what we want. And then I have to say, well, we got to take a step back or two. And those are the times when before they call me, they should talk to Jay.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, he brought up an interesting point the other day. He called me and said, hey, we're talking about next of kin.
Yeah.
And South Carolina has a statutory guideline as to who's first in line to decide what happens with the body.
Oh.
He can't do something with a body unless he knows who has authority to do something and has the power to tell him this is what needs to be done, because you don't want someone cremated that doesn't.
I never even thought of that,
etc.
Yeah.
So I pulled out the statutes and I said, okay, here's what we've got, and he knew who the next of kin was based on that, and then he knew who had the power to decide that particular issue.
So there's a list of like the next of kin that goes down.
Yeah.
So you're checking off till you get.
Right. Now, the first, we use the term next of kin. I want to be careful here, because the first person that has power is the person that's in a last will and testament.
Okay.
Now, they may or may not be the next of kin in a traditional sense. They might be.
Help me.
Well, what I mean is, we could have a distant cousin or someone that's not even related to the decedent who is named as the personal representative in the will.
Okay.
Well, they may not be a relative, but they're the next of kin according to the statute, in theory, is all I'm saying. But they're the ones with the power to decide what happens with the body. The first person named in the will, that's who would have the power.
So what I hear you say is, someone dies, we call you, we find out from you, because you're kind of handling it, what can be done with that body, with that soul, with that person.
That's right.
And then you would convey that message.
Well, normally they call me first.
Okay.
And one of the things Jay's right about, you know, the person in the will, the executor, however it's named, is the person who takes care of the estate. But many times that will isn't read or even viewed.
That's right.
Wow.
That's
You don't
right.
know.
Not even seen.
Yeah, not until
frequently.
somebody, until a family member or next of kin comes in and says, you know, this is what we got to do with mom or dad or somebody like that. And sometimes that can get sticky. So I have to ask some questions. I have to say, okay, you know, are there anybody, a wife is automatically, a real wife is automatically the next of kin to someone who passes away. But sometimes they're not married. Divorced people, you know, always goes to the adult kids after that. And then it's easy. But after that, you get, are they brothers, sisters? Are they that same class of person? And then our question was whether a half brother or a full sister has a different. And so that's what we were talking about.
We were talking the other day, and we had a half sibling, and then we had two full siblings, and the question was, well, who has the power? Well, it's the majority rules. Half does not make any difference under South Carolina law, but the rule is the personal representative is first priority, and then we've got then we've got, regardless of whether they're a spouse or not, and then there's some military things in there too. So DD 93 for the military people out there. But if you've listed them on your DD 93, who's got the power over your body, then that would take priority, and then we get down to the actual relatives further on down the list, unless they've authorized in some other document that someone would have
And
power.
I know we've only got about 30 seconds, but what you're talking about is if the person is buried or cremated, or what actually happens is, and there's a lot of, can be controversy with that, yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because once the decision is made, obviously it can't be undone.
True.
So it's important to get it right, and Jim takes a lot of pride in making sure it is done right.
I tell you, these segments go so fast, it's like I need another 20 minutes. Stay with us, we'll be right back. We're going to come back and continue our discussion.